We here once again and the map bringing awareness and the jump off. I'm sorry, and the jump off bringing again awareness. No, second show about awareness. Today we're gonna talk about adolescent and COVID. Um, I had three people today because I'm have here Adriana. Um, I had Ida Lopez.
Hi.
She will tell you later on her title. And I have Miss Soti Feliciano. She will tell you your title too. We here today because we want to. Last time that we was here, we was talking about children and COVID and mental ill. But today we're gonna talk about those kids who are in junior high school and high school, and what happened with them during this year, and how we can help those kids and parents to do this transition. So I will let Adriana start.
Sorry, I was still like sharing. Oh my god, y'all. Say that one more time for me. I'm so sorry.
Okay, I will let Adriana to start so she can say her part here. And
Oh, okay. Got you. All right. So, I'm Cadriana. Most people call me Kay. So that's usually how I refer to myself. For those who don't know, I am a director here with Civic Ministry. I do a couple different things within the organization. But for the purposes of today, in our Roots Community Support Initiative program, I am the Youth Mental Health Group facilitator. So this is a new group that we'll be starting. We have the Women's Mental Health Group, but next week we'll be starting our first session, and we're really excited about that. And I'm really excited to do a new thing in our organization.
now we're gonna let Ida Lopez so she can
Um,
introduce herself.
Hi guys. I'm Ada. This is my first time on a podcast, so give me grace. Um, I have my master's in special ed. I just got that in this. I was able to get it with COVID starting. So COVID started March, whatever, and I graduated in May. I was able to finish. And then I have my bachelor's already in early childhood, and I work as a teacher on the ESC campus. My age groups is 3 and 4.
Plus, Ada is the mom that we're gonna talk
Oh
about
yes,
today.
I am a mom. I am a mom to another. My oldest son is going to be 24, and he's trying to finish his master's through COVID. It's on delay or postponed, however you want to look at it, due to he has to have contact hours, and since you can't have contact with people, yeah, I don't know, he's in limbo. And then my other one is a senior this year, and I had a lot of his friends graduate, and I had to hear their moms say how it was so hard, but they had most of their year. My son went into this and has had a COVID whole year. So adolescent with mood swings and not himself and wanting all the accolades of a senior year athlete and getting what he's getting.
Okay, and we have Miss Soti Feliciano.
Hello, I'm Yasodis Feliciana. I'm a guidance counselor at Jonathan High School in New York. And I've been working with adolescents now in the guidance aspect for about 6 years. But before that, I was involved in other organizations working with youth as well. So I have several years of experience working with youth.
Okay, and for those who knows, I'm part from Roots. Like I say, I'm the director from the new program that we have now. Plus, I'm the person who facilitate the women's group in Spanish and English. Uh, and we trying to reach both communities. Right now, we're gonna do it today in English, and I'm gonna go ahead, Cadriana, let Cadriana to go for the first question.
Right. So, I guess COVID's been a difficult time. From what I'm hearing from a lot of parents. We do have the food pantry here, so every other Saturday, when we're speaking to the parents, I think a lot of what they're struggling with is, um, like they're finding themselves like out of nowhere just experiencing their kids having mental health challenges. They're not, quite used to with their kids being so involved in school, and now that they're home all the time, they're noticing things that seemed a little strange before. I guess what we could really start off with is like, what are those signs and symptoms of, mental illness or mental health awareness that parents should be aware of?
That's for Miss Soti.
So, definitely with the pandemic and the routines have changed for our youth tremendously. They are going from being used to a set routine of getting up early in the morning, getting ready, going to school, meeting their teachers, meeting their friends in school, and have a set routine for different activities after school as well, to where they're just home and they have lost that sense of urgency to get up and get ready and be active and involved. The lack of movement and connection and structure and routine have definitely influenced, I guess, a lack of motivation in a lot of our youth. And it all turns down to they feeling stressed out and they don't even know about it, from everything that's going on around them. So you'll notice more symptoms like experiencing headaches more frequently, or stomach aches, or issues with sleep, or not being able to sleep or sleeping too much. Sometimes loss in appetite, not being able to go out and interact with others. Also have them feeling a little overwhelmed or sad. They will say. So looking for those different things, like if there are any change in habits that they will normally notice in the children, any significant changes in habit could be a potential symptom of them experiencing some sort of stress, or mental health concern.
Um, Miss Ada, what happened at the moment that you kids start stay home when that pandemic start? How everything changed at home for them?
Well, our whole dynamic changed obviously because they were trying to figure out their schooling in general. College wasn't as hard. They just put you're used to going to your lectures, and now you went into a lecture hall, and most people are accustomed to Zoom and other media sources. So my older one took it. I guess the adjustment for him was a little easier. However, there was a lot of drag on my internet. I had to raise that. There was fighting over space now because my older son wasn't home. He was at a dorm, and now he was here all the time. My little one was used to being able to go and come, and he would get home like maybe 7:30 from working out, seeing his friends, and all that good stuff. That all came to a complete halt. We were on shutdown, so it was home all the time with the same faces to do the same thing. So the first month was really rough. They were eating me out of house and home, which as a parent, I guess that's how I noticed. Like I could see their eating habits different, their sleeping patterns different. The older one, he was restless. He would go out for jogs. He was talking about that he needed to drive, not to argue with people in the house. The little one was trying to get accustomed to cutting off his social with his friends, which I think is really hard for him because he's an athlete and he's used to all the cheering and all the things that go with that, and it just stopped. So it was really hard for them.
So, oh,
Go
you
ahead.
can ask the question. Did you want to?
No, go ahead.
All right. So, something I was gonna ask. Now that we like kind of talked a little bit about like what are things to notice, how could a parent approach a child, or they're a teenager, about the mental health signs and symptoms that they're seeing?
I think
My personal
personal education is
experience.
the best way, and address it directly, head on, right? Not necessarily going around the bush. A lot of teenagers sometimes lack the communication skills or the actual terminology to express how they're feeling. So parents asking their children how was their day today? Did you experience what happened in school? Did anything happen that make you feel uncomfortable? Um, do you feel the day that you need to take a break? How do you know when you need to take a break? What does your body feel? How do you see yourself behaving during that time? What are your thoughts? It's important to have this communication with your children because sometimes they don't realize that they're being stressed out or they're having a hard time with something, but they experience it in different ways physically in their body. So bringing asking this type of questions brings some awareness in them about how they're behaving, how they're feeling, what their emotions are, and it helps them understand that a little better, as well as then they can talk things out about how to regulate those emotions.
Uh, Ada, how you deal with those changes? How you figure
Um,
out
Well, how
what
would
to
you?
ask?
Yeah, I was gonna say, how would you approach that?
well, me and my boys, I've always tried to have a very open dialogue with them. I don't live in I know culturally, mental health is very taboo. You don't talk about that. It's not something that it's not okay, especially for men. I have two men, right? So I've always told them that they need to express their feelings no matter what, good, bad, or indifferent. You need to get it out. So however you need to get it out, we need to work that way. If you need an outlet, you need to know so that you're not trying to kill one another or anyone else. That's just. And then when COVID hit, it got worse. So I have a full on gym now in my house because they needed to get it out, and that's where they get their aggression out, and it's a healthy way to get it out. So we have a bike, we have a treadmill, we have weight dumbbells, we have a squat machine. There's like $3,000 worth of equipment in this house now. So, and they work out significantly every day for hours. It's not even like, oh, I'm going to go for a run like normal people. No, no, no. It's like 3 hours. And then they'll go and they'll do something together, whether it's basketball or if they're going to throw, if my older one is going to help my little one with catching the ball because he plays football or things like that. So, however, we've always talked and like with Christopher's a little more sensitive and he's very moody and it has peaked this last year. So I'll tell him, I was like, you need to bring down your base. I'm sorry you're upset. I offered him a journal. He told me that was girly. I asked him, did he need someone to talk to? If not me, then someone. Like, do you need a coach? Do you want to talk to your dad? Do you want to talk to a teacher? When I was concerned for him, like I definitely monitored his grades. My older one, I took him at his word. The little one, you can go in there, you can check it. So I started checking it more periodically. His teachers were very good about if I sent them an email, they would usually respond within the day. And his counselor was very good. Like for senior year and trying to set up things that were virtual for him to be able to see the schools and things like that. So I think just having open dialogue and letting him know that it's not, this isn't our normal, but this is what it is.
Yeah. All right. I guess on the second part to that question, would be if now because things are so different, right? From even 5, 6 years ago, you're talking about 11, 12, 13-year-olds being exposed to mental health awareness on TikTok, on Instagram. You know what I mean? They're much more aware of like the signs and the symptoms and being able to like compare that to their own experiences. Now, what if a child who's being aware to that, being exposed to that kind of awareness is saying, you know what, I think I may have a problem, and they go to their parents? What might be like helpful or, healthy reactions that, a parent can give to their child when their child comes up to them and says, I think I may have a problem?
As a parent, I think you need to validate what was stated.
Okay.
You need to acknowledge that they're trying to tell you something and actually listen to them. Not harp, not attack, not be judgment. I know it's hard. I'm a parent. Sometimes I mean, it's happening to us too. You're overworked, you're tired, and now you got to deal with this too. But it's no different than them needing glasses or them needing, they're diabetic and now you have to change their diet and you got to watch what they eat. It's just their mind. It's something not right with their psyche, and whatever they need, you need to find what works for that child. That's how I've always looked at anything. Like it's just something that they need, and I just have to give it to them the way they need it. Everybody needs something, and they might need it a little different than I do. So.
Wow. Amazing the answer. Miss Soti, I have a question. How is when parents go to the guide counselor, say, I think most of the time parents don't assure that they know. They just ask, I think my son having this issue. And I know a lot of kids that when parents go and say, I had this, my child had this problem, but they say no. How the guide counselor can guide that child to understand that it's okay to have that situation right now.
Yeah, yes, we definitely see that a lot. And vice versa too. We have parents that come in concerned about a behavior they notice in the child at home, and concern whether they might be experiencing some sort of mental health concern. On the other hand, we also have parents that, or students that come to us about these concerns, but the parents have no knowledge about it, and they feel like, oh no, my parents don't believe in therapy, they don't believe on any of this stuff, so there's no way I can talk to my parents about this. So it really goes both ways. To the child, when the parent comes to me with a concern, I try to validate the parent, of course, ask as many questions as I can to the parent, because I only see the child at school, I don't see the child how he behaves at home, or outside the school walls, right? So I try to gather as much information from the parents as possible, from their perspective of what they notice the child doing at home, what things have changed, and then I use that to talk to the child privately, and try to gauge the child's understanding of their behaviors, and then I'll share some of the stuff that the parents might have told me, like certain behaviors or certain things that have been happening, like ask them specifically about, so when you react this way, what is going on in your mind, what is happening, and try to get them to understand a little bit more about their own self-awareness. And then I introduce to them the possibility of therapeutic counseling, right? Because it's not just talking, but it's also talking and listening to understand and be able to reflect on our own decision making. So, when a kid come to me with a concern and is afraid to tell their parents, I also talk to the kid, try to understand where they're coming from, and when they give me permission to talk to the parents, I'll bring on in the parent as well, and then we usually have a conversation together in the school, and try to open up the lines of communication between them. A lot of parents sometimes have stigma about mental health, so they don't want their child to be labeled. But it's not about the child being labeled. Sometimes the child, mental health has many different definitions, right? A lot of people think mental health and they say, "Oh, my child's not crazy. They don't need a psychiatrist. They don't need medication." And mental health not always lead to that, right? Being stressed out, being overwhelmed, um, feeling down, being a little sad about what is going on, with especially with the pandemic now. So many youth had lost family members or relatives, or people close to them and loved ones, and they don't even know how to process that grief and that loss. So having somebody, a therapeutic counselor that could work with them in coping skills to help them understand their emotions and how to manage them, and develop skills so that they can move forward and don't be stuck in that present mood where they're just feeling down and with lack of motivation and not being able to perform to the full potential. So it does involve a lot of information being given to both in both ends, to the child and to the parent, and trying to get them to understand. So a lot of education in both ends, pretty much.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that we see more. We see the lack of stigma that the community have when it comes to mental health. Right now, you hear we listen. Many people say autistic kids, and that's it. And all my children have an IP, but parent doesn't know what's an IP. They don't understand beyond the IP why the children get hurt. It's just not only because he have a mental. It can be a mental ill. It don't has to be a mental health issue, and
Correct.
sometimes for children when I've been seeing this, especially when they're in junior high school, they oh you have to leave the classroom for an hour or 30 minutes to go to the counselor or go to a speech, anything like that. Even children don't want to do that because they don't want to be labeled, because they don't understand. Um, that's something that I'm trying to do now is bring awareness to parents, to the community. But what we can do, or what you think is the suggestion for us to do, so the school bring awareness to everybody, especially the children that are going to school, about mental health and about mental ills.
I think there needs to be a lot of more education to both the youth and the parents and the community as a whole. Um, at the school with the youth, being able to normalize that in a regular day, everyday school classroom setting, right? Simple little things like teachers starting their class with a reflection on how their night was the day before. Uh, a small breathing exercise that doesn't take very long. Things like that. We call them social emotional learning, which a lot of schools, you might hear a lot about it in schools nowadays. A lot of schools are trying to adopt this. And it basically is a process in which we teach children and adults, not just children, but everyone really, how they acquire skills and knowledge to learn the a skill to recognize and manage their emotions, to demonstrate caring and concern for others, to establish relationships and being able to make responsible decisions. So small exercises implemented in every class or every day in the morning, maybe sometime in the afternoon, do a check-in with the student to how are you feeling today? Um, what are you feeling right now? Let's do a small breathing exercise. It's kind of like meditation, right? Um, so implementing that into the curriculum, I think will help improve the overall mental health of the school community, and also create parent workshops where parents could come in to teach them these skills so that they could also practice these things at home with their child or for themselves.
Yeah,
I like
definitely.
that.
Go ahead.
You were gonna say
No, go ahead.
something. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I really liked all that you said. I think looking back to when I was in school, I went to school in an inner city. I grew up in New York, in the Bronx, so it was that kind of environment where you know most of the people, most of the kids, they were growing up where there was drugs, there was violence in the home, that kind of situation. However, I don't remember really feeling comfortable to speak to my guidance counselor at school
Mhm.
because you have that fear of CPS. You know what I mean? Like Child Protective Services are going to come, they're going to take me away from my family. And so, what are some of the things that maybe can be educated to adolescents, to other, even younger kids as well, to feel comfortable to speak to an adult who's qualified to help with that situation? Although I know that a lot of school, counselors and teachers and things of that nature are mandated reporters, but like, if they feel the need to speak to an adult, how can we help them feel more comfortable to do that?
Absolutely, and it is true. All school staff are mandated reporters,
Yeah.
not just the counselor or the teachers. Every single person who lives, who works at the school
Yeah.
building is a mandated reporter. Um, but that shouldn't be a deterrent to seek help, right?
Yeah.
Um, what I tell my students are this. I call them my kids. So what I tell my kids is this: when you come into my office, this is a safe space, right?
Okay.
You could tell me whatever you want. It's not going to leave this world. What we speak here is confidential,
Yeah.
and unless you are in danger of hurting yourself or others, what you say here stays here.
Well, okay.
If you say something that leads me to believe that you're in danger of hurting yourself or hurting other people, I have an obligation to keep you and other people safe. So I have to speak with my supervisor, um, to be able to better help you and provide you the assistance that you need. But otherwise, what you say in my office stays in my office between you and me, unless you give me permission to share it with other people.
Hmm.
So that's and of course, just saying that is not going to build instant trust, right? You have to build a rapport with that student. So maybe we don't start talking about mental health right off the bat because they don't feel comfortable with that topic. But we start talking about other things. What are your interests? What do you like to do? Build that rapport with that student, until they see and learn to trust me that what we're discussing is between us, and that we can establish a routine where we could talk to each other, and they can trust me to tell me what they're feeling, and know that I'm listening, and be able to provide some feedback to them that they could use. And then when they do, oftentimes when they do end up trusting, and then they do revealing uh, things that might be sensitive, or that they're afraid to tell their parents, we talk about that. Like, so how, why is it so uncomfortable for you to talk to your parent about this? And we try to understand the situation, and try to navigate. Most times than not, they end up either telling the parent themselves, or asking me to call home with them so that they could tell the parents with me on the phone, or invite the parent for a meeting so that we could all talk. So it's really building that rapport with the student. And it falls not just on the students, it really falls on the staff. You have to have those open lines of communication, with your students, to be able to gain that trust from them.
Um, this is for Ada. I know that even though you have your kids, you work with kids too,
Mm-hmm.
and most of the part you work with parents.
Mm-hmm.
And my question will be this: when you see any child that need extra help from the parents, how you will approach that parents? The parent feel comfortable to say to you, "Yes, I'm gonna receive that help that you say." Like most or less, what's your approach to parent as a teacher?
As a teacher, I'll piggyback off of what she said. You have to have a rapport with that parent. So you can't just go diving in and saying, I feel, I believe, and it's concrete that this, and this is. You have to have a rapport with that parent. You need to have be able to communicate good, bad, and indifferent. Like, oh, I'm seeing them struggle, or I've noticed. Are there any changes at home, so that maybe they can see it for themselves? Sometimes a parent will take what you say and then go look for it at home in their own, like in their own environment, and see if they see the same things. Some parents need to digest it, because hearing that there's something wrong with their child is something that they need, like, you have to mourn it, like you have to come to grips with that and acknowledge that. And I always say that, it's a partnership. And the same way I would tell you, so and so keeps falling and they look like they might need glasses, you might have to get them checked. Or, I've noticed that I call so and so a lot of times, and they don't turn their head, they don't look my direction. something might be wrong with the hearing. It's just for me, and I'll tell them just like that. It's not any different than if I told you that they needed new shoes or their clothes don't fit, or they need whatever book they need, and all of us drop everything to do what we can for our kids. What she was saying before, as a parent, right, you want your kid to tell you the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes with the truth, you gotta be good with whatever the truth is, right? So mommy, I took the car and I was out late, but I wasn't where I told you, and this happened with so and oh, so now you gotta compartmentalize your anger
Yeah.
and not blow up at the fact that they lied to you about whatever, and hear what your child is trying to convey to you, because now they're scared, or it was a situation that went down, or because in the end, like, you want them to always come back and tell you the truth. So you have to weigh your pros and cons and see if is it really worth it to yell at them and blow it up and make it the whole this big production, or listen to them and see why they did what they did, or why they coming in late, or those kinds of things. So I know with my son, it's really hard, that aspect, but I have to, like, if he's telling me the truth, if he came to me and he's telling me the truth and he's sincere and sorry, because you should know your kid by now. Mine is 18, so I know kind of more or less when he's BSing. I can, I'll sit there and I have to be like, well, you know what? I'm not happy. And I'll tell them. I've always said that. I don't know. It's because I teach little children. I'll be like, I'm not happy with what you did. Not at all. And I'm very upset and disappointed. Like, I'll give them all the language in the world. Do you know what I'm saying? And it might be in a loud tone. And I'll crack it up to, like, I'm Hispanic and Latina and whatever. However, I not throwing away my feelings, but I'm acknowledging, look what you did. Yes, I'm mad, but I'm still here.
Yeah.
Because in the end, I'm still here. I'm always going to be here. And I try to make him know that no matter what he does, I'm always going to be there, right? Because I'm a kid, but and I'll tell him, I'm like, I brought you here and I might take you away, but like, we need to work through this. And I think now, seeing him go, like, he's getting ready to leave to college, and I hope that everything that I put there is there, so that if something happens at school, he'll be able to call home. If he needs the help, he'll go and get it. He'll be able to express himself and find it.
Mia Sotis, I have another question for you. How did the whole counseling thing work during the COVID lock with the schools not being open? I'm so curious as to
It,
how
it
that went.
is it is quite challenging
Oh,
because we're so used to just being in the school building. The kids come in if they feel like they need to talk to their guidance counselor. They ask their teachers for a pass to come see me, or they come see me in between classes. So they're always dropping in my office. So it's very different now, because now they're not dropping in. I have to really look for them.
right.
It's very rare that a kid come out to talk to me on their own. I have I created a Google Classroom where I added all my students to that Google Classroom. So I share important information with them through the Google Classroom, resources for mental health and other academic resources as well, community resources. I set up office hours. I have a link for a private Google Meet if they want to schedule a Google Meet with me, and a few reach out directly. Sometimes they just email me and say, Miss Feliciano, can I schedule an appointment with you? And I said, sure, no problem. What works for you? Do you want to talk now? And if I'm available at the moment, and we'll jump in a meet or a phone call and do that. But most of the time, it's me doing the outreach, checking in, trying to call home, finding out, oh, how is such and such doing? Um, I created a communication board, like with those emojis that everybody's been using lately. So I
Yeah.
created a emoji of myself with all my contact information. If it's interactive, they could click on different things to access different resources. They could click on like a calendar thing to schedule a meeting with me. They could click on different things that I put in the virtual office so that they could access like graduation requirements and academic resources that they might need, request tutoring and things like that. Um, I'm lucky enough that my school, I actually work in New York too. I work in Queens, New York, and I'm lucky enough to work in a community school that has their own health center within the school building through Northwell Hospital, which used to be LIJ. I don't know if any of you are familiar with it, but they're based on Long Island, a children's hospital, and we have a full clinic staff in the basement of our school, where we have a nurse practitioner, we have three therapists, and a psychiatrist that comes once a month for students who need that type of services as well. Um, so we're very lucky in that sense where we could work and team up with the staff at the health center, where because there's also a misconception, right? Guidance counseling or school counseling, where we do some mental health work, is more informational and preventive, but long term counseling with a student that is really struggling and need that more constant reassurance and one-on-one sessions on, they might need to see somebody on a weekly basis, on a one-on-one for a specific period of time, maybe every 2 weeks. It depends on the level of stress or the level of the mental health concern that they're experiencing. um, that's beyond the capability of a guidance counselor, right? So whereas a counselor will refer out to a therapist in the community, we have the option of referring within to the health center, and the therapist at the health center.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
Um, Ada, you here in Strasbourg. Um,
Yeah.
so how you think, an opinion, um,
Yes, my
it's
opinion.
just a question. It came to my mind because I don't have high school student no more in school. But how the guide counselors are working with the kids now here in Monroe County, or at least in Strasbourg, where your district is. Like how
Um,
you see that interaction, because I see Miss Misotti have excellent interaction with her
Yeah.
kids, but now here, I don't know.
Yeah.
so my son has gone back the 2 days from when they let them go. His counselor knows me by name, but he's also had my older son. So when it was time for Christopher to do virtual visits for schools and stuff like that, like when I had asked him if he knew of any school, like what he thought Christopher would be good at, because that was another thing, like he doesn't know what he wants to do. He sent me a book. It was like 10 pages long of all these schools that he said was a perfect fit for Chris. So like he had already been on his game clearly to send it for me, because I had sent him that email on a Sunday night and he had it to me already for Monday morning. Like when I went to look at 8 o'clock, it was there already. So he not only was working off hours, like he had it already ready. Um, Christopher says that he loves his counselor. He goes to him all the time. He got him his lunch waived. He got him his SATs waived. He got him some college entrance exams waived. Like, so he's been on his game. I asked him how he's doing, because it is very different. And my son is very friendly and open, and I know like he'll go in there and pasarle tiempo in there talking to him, trying to get out of a class. That's how I look at it. But I know that he was, keeping tabs on all his kids, on his however many seniors or however many students they have. Here, I don't know how many students is to his load, but they're not as many as what Mio has. Like there's not that many counselors. I want to say there was like maybe 4. So I don't know how they divide them. But he's never not answered me. And
Yeah.
as far as Christopher, he's never said that. Like he talks to him all the time and he calls him by his first name, which I think is inappropriate, but that's sidebar.
um, is I just want to know because I see a lot of kids here that they really don't know even what is the office of the guide counselor. I know a lot of kids like that. It's sad to say. I know too a lot of parents they don't know what's the office of the guide counselor. And well, when I have my kids in school, everybody know me, so they can do nothing. Oh, this is Miss Maria's kids, so
Yeah.
everybody know my kids. And elementary school, junior high school, even when I was here, and when I came here, I moved here in 2010. My big question is how we can help these parents to have or at least kind of relationship with those counselors so the kids know it's okay to go to the guide counselor. And this is for you, Ira, that you have so much, I think, involvement with the guide counselor, with the kids in your school. How you manage this over here? Because
I'm
PA is very different than New York.
No, it is. I manage because it's there you have those parents that do what they have to do for their child. So you rearrange your whole schedule to accommodate them. So like for him, he was for the football team, he was part of the boosters. That was a whole bunch of moms that made sure that they're raising money and they were getting them their food and going back and forth and buying them gear and all that kind of stuff. But with my own parents, I also have a Google Classroom and I have a communication board and I put in there resources for my parents. I try to put the events in there. I load up all the pictures I can because they're no longer allowed in my facility. So as a mom, that's heartbreaking to me that I can't come. And then there's some activities that I do every year that I have a lot of parent participation. I'm really good at that because I always try to, when I make my events, make sure that there's a something that they can donate if they can't be there. Send as many pictures as I can because I know you couldn't be there because we always, as a mom, as a working mom, you can't always do everything. So I always mindful of that. I try to make it more than one time. So if I have it on Friday, then I might try to do it on Monday or do 2 days back to back so that I could get as many of them in. I always tell the moms that look at me like, oh, but I can't do it. Well, I'll take grandma, big sister, the babysitter, whoever can come for that child, no problem. Like I always try to make it like as easy as possible. So when it came to Christopher's school was the same thing. I asked his guidance counselor. I know him, and when I see Mr. Cool, I address him. I always tell him hi. I make sure I make it to point to acknowledge him, to thank him for his work that he does, because I think that's another thing. Like I don't think if you're not mindful of it, you don't know what goes on behind closed doors, what they're doing and what they're doing for the kids. So, but if you don't ask and you're not involved, then you can't say that what's being done and what's not being done. Because most schools have a lot of resources. It's just a matter of fact of going to get them and reaching out for them. Here anyway, up here
Over here.
in PA, yeah.
Yeah. I'm asking I'm here because more of the population that we're serving now here in Monroe County. But I know too a lot of population that we have here that came from New Jersey and New York, and they used
Mm-hmm.
to, oh, New York, I don't have to travel. I let the kids in school, or this happened in school. It's a different, but it's the transition to be here
Mm-hmm.
and they cut off. And I used to do in New York, like right now she says she's in a building in New York that they have psychologists, they have all this. Maybe over here the parents has to travel to go to the psychologist. um, and I know in New York many school too that happen, parents have to travel. But my big concern is many parents they don't even know what is the guide counselors do in school. They just know, oh, teacher just teach, and the principal is the one who's in charge of the school. And from there, they just go there. Again, it's saying like Miss Soti say, education, but on how we get to that to the parents, how we get that education to the parents.
I could tell you that if you ask teachers in a building what school counselors do, a lot of them wouldn't be able to tell you what we do either. So it's not just parents. Uh, and it's funny because we wear so many different hats that sometimes it's hard to pinpoint one specific thing that we do, but our job is really working with the students in helping them develop skills for their success, both academically and social emotionally, right? Yes, we help them prepare for college and explore different career opportunities and things like that. But the bulk of our work is really communicating with the student, understanding where they're coming
Outreach.
from, what their ambitions are, what the goals are, and trying to facilitate what the dreams are and what the goals are with how they can obtain that, right? And that involves many different things. It involves educating the students, going into classroom, doing pushing presentations for classes as a whole, right? Perhaps doing a parent workshop in partnership with a parent coordinator from school, to educate the families and the parents. It involves collaborating with their teachers to understand what the child is academically in a specific class, what the challenges are within that particular class, and talking with the student and the parent to break that down to both of them on how we can do, on what we can do to help them be more successful if they're having a specific challenge with a particular topic. Um, and yes, mental health as well. Like if the child is feeling overwhelmed or not having a good day, or being anxious about something. A lot of the things that we see is there's a lot of confusion also between the stigma of mental health and special education, and sometimes they're completely unrelated. Just because a child is struggling with a mental health concern doesn't mean that the child has a learning disability or that the child needs to have an IEP. Those are two totally different things. And that's part of the education process that needs to happen for people to understand what the differences are, right? So, for example, a student that has dyslexia, they have a learning disability, they might need an IEP to provide them accommodations on how to do better in school, because they're going to need different resources and support to help them read better, to better so that they could do better in the schoolwork and their classes and understand what they're reading or write and so forth, right? Whereas somebody with a mental health concern such as anxiety, for example, um, they might just need a different accommodation, and there's something called a 504 plan. I don't know if people are
Mhm.
familiar with it, but it's totally different from an IEP, and it doesn't carry the label of a special education. It's just a legal document that provides students accommodations based on a particular need so that they could be more successful in school. 504 can be used for anxiety, to provide accommodations for a student who is experiencing anxiety within the classroom or within the school setting. It can also be accommodation for a student who is diabetic and need accommodations to be able to get their insulin or their medication at a specific time of the day so that their sugar levels don't go down, and their life is not at risk, right? So understanding those differences and how to advocate for the child to have the resources they need to be successful. When we talked earlier about what can parents do to support their children when they're expressing having a concern, a lot of it has to do with the way that we speak with our children, right? Reframing our language so that we can empower our kids to be uh, better self advocate for themselves, as well as learn coping skills. So emphasizing on their accomplishments and their growth rather than being more punitive for what they're not doing, but highlighting the things that they are being able to do despite of this challenge that they might be facing at the moment. Sorry.
Okay, another question.
No, I thought that was really great. Yeah, especially like that last bit. Something with teenagers specifically, because I don't think I know anybody 14 to 17 who doesn't have some type of cell phone and isn't on social media. um, especially with them being home all the time. Do you guys see that as educators and also as parents? As a concern, maybe, you know what I mean, them being, holed up a lot, like not like physically communicating with people. I know that a lot of younger people have, social media is so different for them. You know what I mean? It's kind
Mhm.
of everything. So a lot of them do find, focus groups and things of that nature on social media that they can connect with based on interests that they might not have in their actual physical community. However,
Mhm.
do you guys find that, lacking that physical interaction between other teenagers is what's the word I'm looking for? Not harmful, or
It's hindered.
sure. You know what I mean? We'll use that one until the next one comes. It'll come at some point, probably when I'm driving home. But
Sorry. Well, no, he, they're always on some kind of form of media. The TikToks are hysterical. The challenges that I see them do, oh, I have to go do this or whatever. And those were funny and they definitely got him through.
yeah,
So I won't take that away from him.
yeah,
Um, but I have to remind him that that he needs to be mindful. Like his grandmother doesn't know that. She doesn't know about Google or TikTok and what you call it. So like he has to like introduce it to her, and it's still, as a man, you're supposed to communicate and look at somebody in the eye and talk to them in their face, like not like this. Because that's not going to get him anywhere in his future. So I think just being mindful of that and just um incorporating into that to what you're teaching your children, like we don't need our phones at the table, we're eating dinner as a family. Like
yeah,
if you instill those values from little, they should withstand when they get older. But if you just let them go and they're always on their phone and you don't correct that, then you're part of their reason why they don't look at you in the face. And then when you're sitting there, but I'm talking to you, like, yeah, but you never fixed it. And now you want them to look at you. So you just have to be mindful of that. And I think everything needs limits. Can't be on there all the time. You need to hang up at a human time, at a decent time,
yeah,
not sleep with the phone. Those kinds of things.
And you're absolutely right. Our teenagers live on their phones, right, or their electronic devices. They're always in some sort of social media or texting with a friend, or a group of friends, and
yeah,
there's always that level of communication, and that always been there in the more recent years, despite the pandemic, right?
yeah,
But the problem now is that before the pandemic, yes, they did that and they had that, but they still had that face to face, in person interaction with their peers at school and their teachers and other people outside of their immediate household. Whereas now, especially for a student that might still be in remote learning setting, um, that physical personal interaction has diminished to a very small circle of people that live in their house, and they might not. We want to think that every child's home is their safe haven, right? That's their
yeah,
safe place where they're gonna be safe and protected and nothing bad is gonna happen to them. But we know that the reality is that, unfortunately, that is not the truth for every single child in the United States or the world for that matter, right? And there are children who are struggling at home because they don't feel safe at home, or they don't have the support or the resources. Sometimes they have abusive parents. Sometimes they have absent parents, meaning and not to blame the parent, but sometimes it's a single family household where the parent has to work because they need to bring food to the table and provide a shelter for their child or their children, and cover the basic necessities, but so they have no choice but to go to work. And sometimes they are at work for prolonged periods of time. Like you said earlier, we have a lot of people in Pennsylvania where they are commuters, right? They
yeah,
have moved from New York or New Jersey, and they bought a house here or they're renting here. They're living in Pennsylvania, but they have to travel to New York still for work, or travel to New Jersey still for work, or travel quite long distances, right? So they leave early in the morning, don't come home until late at night. So the child is left alone to get up and get ready and go to school in the morning, or get up, get ready, and log on the computer in the morning if they're in remote learning, do the work all by themselves, and perhaps even get themselves some dinner at the end of the day because maybe the parent is not home yet from work. right?
Yeah.
So the interactions, the physical and personal interaction has diminished so much that they might turn to these devices and these groups for not only for entertainment but sometimes for support. And the problem with that is that not everything that is out there is true, right? Not everything that is out there is positive.
Yeah.
So we also need to be mindful, and parents needs to be mindful of and have those communications with the children, and try to be aware of what type of social interactions are they getting engaged with over the phone or over social media, um, because there's a lot of people that like to take advantage of our youth out there as well. So we have to be mindful and try to set some parameters and some limits on that as well.
Yeah, I love that. I think, across each topic, like what screams the most out, it's education and awareness, and parents just being present. You know what I mean? Being present with their child, being involved, figuring out what's going on with them. And so I think those are really great tips. I think that, especially now that we're starting the youth group, um, that's something that's really great to be able to communicate to the parents. So thank you guys for the information, because it's something that I think I'll carry with me. And when I speak to parents, I can tell them like, hey, like, I'm if I'm noticing these things, or if someone's communicating something to me, that I can be like, you know what, like, hey, just be aware, just be present in that kind of
Mhm.
situation, and getting educated. Yeah.
Um, I would say the same thing. Thank you for being here today. Something that I took about everything is that we have to educate and we have to give the awareness to the community what's going on. We are teenagers or young adults, kids, even though they 17 and they're gonna be 18, they still in our house. It's our responsibility as the parents to see what they're doing, what they're getting involved, and trying to have that communication with them more than before now, because it's less communication that they have with people. And it's so sad what you're saying. A lot of kids don't have it at home, and
Yeah.
that's something that concern us, because later on you see the side effects, especially when it comes back September. They will gonna come in school. We don't know what we're gonna find out with those kids that never been seeing nobody for this entire year.
Right.
Thank you, and hey, mama.
Do you guys have anything you guys want to say before we go?
No, I applaud you guys for trying to reach the youth. I'm so happy that they're going to have a safe space and people of their skin tone and from their same backgrounds, because you feel more welcome when it's somebody you can recognize and like move forward to. So I appreciate that, and God bless y'all and go forward.
Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Otis.
Thank you for the
What you wanna
opportunity
say?
as well. Sorry.
Um,
Thank you for the opportunity as well. And just to go back a little bit about what you said about par- what parents should do if they don't know who the guidance counselor is for the child. Please know that the guidance counselor is somebody that you should be able to trust, and that should be your ally in school, right? They're gonna be the one that are gonna be able to support you and your child in getting your child to successfully complete their high school or their middle school career and move on. So it's important to have those line of communication. If your counselor hasn't reached out to you yet to introduce themselves, then you should do so. Contact the school, the parent of such and such. I would like to know who my child's guidance counselor is. Can I please have their number or the email, and reach out to that counselor, introduce yourself, and let them know that you would like to have a partnership with them.
thank
And
you,
thank you again for having me here, sharing my thoughts.
thank you,
Yes, thank you
ladies.
guys so much. Everyone who's watching, don't forget to share this. You know what I mean? Help us help other people by, creating more awareness and more education about this topic. This is something that everyone can listen to, and not just parents. If you're a brother, if you're a sister, if you're an aunt, you're an uncle, there's someone who can bring awareness to a parent of an adolescent and a teen as well. So please share this, and thank you guys so much. Thank you, ladies, again.